Ever felt like you're drowning in advice? Coaches, consultants, mentors, LinkedIn gurus, yes, even podcast hosts. Everyone's got an opinion on what you should be doing. But what if the answer you've been searching for isn't out there? What if it's already in you? In this episode, we're talking about the power of discernment and how to reconnect with your own inner leader, the one expert who truly knows your business best. Let's dive in. Welcome to Female Founder Unplugged, the show where we cut through the noise and have a real, raw conversation about what it takes to build and scale a successful business as a female entrepreneur. I'm Lindsay White, people strategy expert, leadership coach, and fellow founder. And I know firsthand the challenges of scaling sustainably and staying connected to your passion along the way. This podcast is for ambitious women just like you, seasoned founders and CEOs navigating the challenges of leadership, team building, and sustainable growth. In each episode, we'll dive into those topics that are most important to you as a female founder. You'll hear honest, no BS conversations about building, growing, and leading a team and culture so that you can grow without losing yourself in the process. Because let's be real, entrepreneurship can feel isolating, and leadership doesn't come with a roadmap. If you've ever struggled with the pressure of running a business, felt overwhelmed by growing your team, or wondered, how do I scale without sacrificing my vision and my purpose? You're in the right place. Let's get unplugged. Hey, welcome back to another great episode of the Female Founder Unplugged. I'm your host, Lindsay White. I'm happy to be here with you today to talk about when is advice too much advice? And how do we trust our inner leader? Really get connected with our own voice, that real gut check, that heart-centered space that I think we all want to be in. Because let's be honest, we are absolutely surrounded by advice. And hey, some of it's amazing, right? There are people out there that give us really great feedback, really get great tips, develop our understanding. But some of it is total noise. And if you're a female founder trying to scale and serve your team and still sleep at night, all that guidance can become totally overwhelming. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to help you shift through all those inputs, figure out what actually really serves you, and help you find the way to reconnect with your most powerful advisor, the one that's always in your corner. And that's yourself. So let's start off by talking about what is the difference between some of these advisors, these conversations, these voices we hear? Like, how do we disseminate between coaching, consulting, mentorship? What do all those things mean? Because we use those terms really interchangeably, and it becomes very tricky as a founder to try and discern. So what I want to say is this is how I delineate it. And I think it's important to have this context so that you know what you're looking for, and you're not just worried about language. So here's the deal. These roles are all super valuable, and they all have their place. They all have their time as you're scaling your business, but they're not interchangeable. So let me help you out with some definitions. So first of all, what is a coach? Well, a coach helps you uncover answers that you already have access to by asking you powerful questions, helping you with some reflections, giving you the space to process what may in fact be in the way, and hold up a mirror for you, because sometimes you need to see how awesome you actually are, and other times you need to reflect on your behavior. When I think about my role as a coach, and I work with lots of women in business, is I always think about being a guide. So if we're on a hike together, that's what I am. I am the one that has part of the map for you. I'm pointing out the roadblocks. I'm helping you decide which way you want to go when there's a fork in the road. I'm helping you figure out how you want to get over, under, or around any of those things that are in the way. But always, 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 I am in your corner, and you are always leading on the journey. And that to me is the most important and most powerful part about coaching, is that a really powerful coaching partnership is really solely focused on the person that we are coaching and what is their intention. What did they want to create? As a coach, it's not about me. Everything I do with my clients as a coach is all about them. So that's really important that we understand, because that word coach gets used very interchangeably. And in fact, I think a lot of time people that say they do coaching are actually doing consulting work. So what is a consultant? Well, a consultant is someone that we hire, we engage with because they bring expertise, they have skill, they have experience, they have direct knowledge, they have actionable answers. They often have the tips, the tools, the frameworks, the 12 steps. Those are consultants. And we hire them so that they can tell us what they think, what they've done, what's worked and what's not. The best consultants actually behave in a very coach-like way because they too ask a lot of powerful questions. And then what they do with their clients is come back with a variety of answers or options. And for me, this is a really important delineation between the two. I do both. When I work with my clients, I am a coach and I am a consultant. And sometimes I'm both all at the same time. And I will say to my clients, okay, I'm going to take off my coach hat now and I'm going to put on my consultant hat. Because sometimes in a scaling business, we need to talk about you as a leader, but we actually also then need to talk about how you are leading the strategy and what are the pieces that we need to do. What are the processes and systems? And those two conversations blend together. And to me, that's actually really important. But it's also key that when we're looking for the right people to get advice from, that we are able to understand what is coaching versus consulting. And then, of course, we layer in this concept of mentorship. So mentorship can be super valuable. This is about partnering with someone because they have lived experience. So, for example, as a CEO in my own business, I went to spend time with other female founders that are CEOs that are a little bit ahead of where I am in my business. They have lived experience. They have been through it. They've walked the path. And so from that perspective, as a mentor, they can actually not just help us walk the path, but actually point out where the pitfalls are along the way, things that they've experienced that they would offer to us so we could potentially avoid them. And mentorship can be super valuable. In fact, I'm so proud to say that I'm actually mentoring a young adult who is ready to graduate with their HR degree, that I was asked by one of our local universities to be in that space. And that's what we do, is we share together, my mentee and I, but I'm engaged with him because he knows that I have 20 years of HR experience and that that's really valuable as he is stepping into his career. So anyways, that is all the three different roles to help you decide what kind of advisor do you need. And again, each plays a beautiful role, but knowing what you need and when you need it is absolutely key. So when you're frustrated that, things aren't going the way you want, perhaps the advice that you've been given doesn't land or it doesn't work, it might be because there's a mismatch. Maybe you were looking for real technical support, but what you needed was more strategic, or you needed wisdom, or maybe you just needed the space to process out loud because you had the answer inside of you already. All right, let's talk a little bit now about some red flags that I want you to watch out for. Because again, there are lots of people that use one of these three labels, but in fact, they're nothing of the sort. And I think one of those spaces that gets the most complicated is when people call themselves coaches. Because as we've just talked about, coaching is not necessarily about my process or my system or my steps or my templates. That's consulting. So let's just talk for a minute about some red flags when you need to ask for help and then who you might want to ask for help from. So for example, if you're stuck in a bit of a loop, like you're spinning on the same decision over and over and over again, that's when a coach can be super valuable because clearly there's something getting in the way. There's something that you're having a hard time processing, that maybe there is something that is a saboteur that is actually causing you to be a bit in the spin cycle. Well, having a really great coach who can ask you those powerful questions, help you self-reflect, and be that space of really open, honest, raw processing and that deep connected conversation, that can be really valuable in that space. If you keep bumping into the same wall in your business, well, perhaps that's time for a consultant. And nowadays, we have the option to hire people fractionally. I do that in a lot of businesses. And so, often my clients have run into the same situation 2 or 3 times. And they're like, why can't I figure this out? Well, because you need some expertise. You actually need someone who knows and can give you options or give you ideas and help you co-create new solutions. So that's where consulting fits really well. If you've lost sight of your own voice, if you can't hear that inner leader conversation, if you're second guessing everything, that's a great time to engage a coach, because you need to do the work to start to really deeply reconnect with what you care about most. That's your values. To really think about what your life purpose is. What are you doing here? What are you meant to create or change? And then really start to leverage that as a yardstick to make decisions. That's when the second guessing actually stops. So that's a fabulous time to connect with a coach. If you are in a situation where you are looking to transition pretty significantly in your business, particularly, always the best example I think of is when you're really looking to make big revenue jumps. That can be time to have a really great mentor, right? Someone who has been in business in a similar fashion to you, who has made that leap from 5 million to 15 million, and having that mentorship conversation with them. What were their experiences? Where did it go right? Where did it go wrong? What did they learn? That's a really valuable mentorship conversation, right? But here's the thing, and I think the most important, what you want here from all of these people is perspective, not permission, right? This advice isn't a crutch. Your coach isn't a crutch. Your consultant is not a crutch. And most importantly, your mentor likely won't be a crutch. You need the ability to use all of these different styles of connection with experts in a way that is meaningful for you. And you can only make the final call if you really understand where you're at. That's really important, is that you ask for help, but you ask for the right help. One of the things you want to do is really thinking about some data and some check-ins, right? So external input, again, from a coach, a consultant, a mentor, absolutely valuable, but it's not the finish line. So here, my friends, is the mindset shift that you need to make to be a truly effective CEO in your business. You need to treat advice like data, not direction. I'm going to say that again for the kids in the back. Treat the advice like data, not direction. It's an input. It's one input. That means we need to pause after hearing something, and we need to ask, what about this feels aligned for me? How does this resonate? Like, what is actually feeling like it really connects, really lands? And then the opposite, we need to ask, where do I feel resistance and why? Why am I not connecting with this? Why does this not feel right to me? And then the third question, am I feeling really lit up here, or am I feeling really locked in? And some of these questions aren't just in terms of our, thinking, our cerebral context here. These are emotional, right? So when I think about the question, where does this feel aligned? I want to feel that in my heart and my soul. Where do I feel resistance? Well, maybe that's butterflies in your stomach, or maybe your shoulders tense up. And then really checking in on, am I feeling lit up Can I feel the tingle, right, in my body? Or am I really feeling locked up and closed? So there's some work here to do, my friends, to really pay attention, not just to what your thoughts are, but how your body actually reacts when you think about some of this data that you're going to collect. Because your body knows and your intuition knows, but you have to make space to truly listen. So for my clients, I talk about perhaps some journaling if you're one of those people. And journaling is such a great process because it takes the thoughts that are in your head and it has to actually process them several different ways in order for them to actually come out at the end of your fingers as you write them down. There's massive processing power in your brain. And so sometimes that can help us untangle what our thoughts are. You may also want to try doing some meditation or some mindfulness. And I do a lot of this in my positive intelligence work, where it really is about pausing, getting extremely present. What am I feeling? What am I hearing? What am I seeing right now in this moment? And what that does is gives our brain a little space and a little time. Sometimes actually being outside, shifting the geography, because for so many of us, and I'm got my hand up, you can't see me, we're stuck behind our desks and behind our computers. So actually going for a walk in nature, going to a coffee shop just for an afternoon, shifting the geography can be really important to help us really get this cooking in our brain and really listen in a different way. And my friends, that's where the clarity truly starts to show up for us. So this is one of the most powerful things I think we can do is really think about this inner leader versus our saboteurs. And we've talked a lot here on the show over the years about the saboteur, right? That is that itty bitty shitty committee, that chatter in your head, popularized as the phrase imposter syndrome. So much more than that. So much more than that. But it really is that snotty, snarky voice that we all have in our head that says we're not good enough. We're not smart enough. We're never going to make enough money. All of that head trash. And this is really powerful, is that we also have our inner leader or sage voice. This is the calm, clear voice that knows the right way forward all the time. That is when we are deeply resonant with choices, that it just sends off this beautiful vibe, right? This is when we're deeply aligned with our values, when we are really connected to other people in a way that truly words don't need to be said. This is the voice that says to you, this feels right, this feels true, this feels good, let's do it. The problem is we don't spend enough time getting quiet to get to that inner leader conversation because the saboteur can be very loud. So the leader, the sage, needs calm, needs quiet so that we can truly hear it. Your saboteur, of course, that's the voice of fear. It's where those shoulds come in. And I will tell you, in today's crowded online market, particularly around some of these coaches, that's what they're preying on is your fear. It's full of shoulds. And you will see it in their really slick marketing, right? It's really about that lack, that urgency, that comparison and self-doubt. And that's what they prey on with their marketing messages. I tell you, it drives me crazy. I see it all the time. Here's how you know who's actually talking. The sage whispers. The saboteur shouts. The sage creates peace and calm. The saboteur creates panic and anxiety and overwhelm. The sage actually moves you forward in a really deeply meaningful and resonant way. The saboteur keeps you stuck and spinning and feeling like you'll never be able to move forward. So this is really critical. You need to get quiet. You need to find space. You need to actually sit in contemplation. That's where the sage shows up. That's where our inner leader speaks to us, right? So again, It's very simple to connect with your sage. You need stillness, sometimes journaling. You need to take a few deep breaths, my friends. Practice your box breathing. You need to do some of these things solo, right? You need to actually be on your own so that you can listen with very little distraction. And these are all ways that you can reconnect with that sage, that inner leader, and really turn down the volume on the fear so you can make beautiful, focused, intentional decisions, and you can get into action and be really powerful and purposeful. Okay. So what happens now that you've gathered all of these inputs? You've got the data, you've, scanned your body, you've done all these things, you're checked in. How do you decide what's the information that's useful that you're keeping? What's the information that just doesn't fit and it doesn't feel right and you're walking away from? All right, here's 3 really simple but really powerful steps. So first of all, check in with your body. How do you feel? Do you feel open? Do you feel calm? Do you feel a little tingly? Or do you feel tight and tense, maybe a little nauseous? Ask the alignment questions, right? Does this advice really reflect your values, your vision, your team and culture? That's really critical, that we need to be in alignment with what we are truly trying to create and truly trying to change in this world and how we want to behave in our business. And then trust the specificity. Intuition isn't vague. Like our leader whispers, but they don't talk to us in generalities. When we can really deeply connect to that inner conversation and really feel grounded in that, when we train ourselves to get quiet enough to really listen, the feedback is laser sharp. It tells us, it just lands it. You just know what is the right thing to do. So although your gut reaction might feel subtle, it's very specific when you slow down long enough to really hear it. All right. So what we've talked about today fits really squarely in the L from the LPC method. This is about leadership. Specifically, my friends, this is about self-leadership. This is about you really getting connected with what makes you powerful as a leader so that you can actually then get back into your business, be the CEO your team needs, drive the vision, really connect people to the mission, really show up in a way that creates cultures of belonging. Leadership is not about having all the answers, but it is about having the discernment to know which voice to trust, including your own. And it is when we can get deeply connected to that leader voice inside, that sage voice we all have, we can have the impact we really desire to have. So this is the kind of work we do inside the LPC Accelerator. We go deep with this work. We help you strengthen your sage voice. We help you quiet that saboteur. And we make clear, confident decisions that align with your purpose, not your fear. The LPC Accelerator includes one-on-one work with me. And it's because this is the type of work we need to do. That's why I want to do this work with you. It is so meaningful and it's so purpose-filled that it changes the game for you in your life, but of course, in your business. So if this resonated with you today, send me an email with the word sage or come and find me on either Instagram or LinkedIn. Mention that word sage to me. And what I'll do is I'll send you my free tool. And this is just the inner leader check-in template. It's very simple, but what it's designed to do is help you navigate through some of these tough decisions with way more clarity, way less second guessing, so that you actually can really think about which of these advisors do you need and when do you need them, that you're engaging them from a place of real deep connection, not fear and a bunch of shoulds. And that's when we can find the right person to really help us drive success for ourselves, for our team, and of course, for our business. All right. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I really always hope that these things that I offer are valuable for you. It's been meaningful work for me finding my sage and listening to my inner leader. And I hope that that's the same for you. If this episode hit home for you, please don't forget to subscribe. Share it with another female founder. There's someone you know in your network that needs to hear this message. And I would love for you to share. And if this really deeply resonated with you, leave us a review and a lovely comment. All of those things are really helpful to encourage others to listen to the podcast. Okay, my friends, until next time, lead with heart, grow with purpose, and stay high voltage. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Female Founder Unplugged. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with me on Instagram at High Volt Leadership and send me your questions or let me know your biggest takeaway. Looking for more strategies on scaling your business, building a powerhouse team, or leading with confidence? Head over to highvoltageleadership.ca or follow me on LinkedIn for exclusive content, resources, and special offers just for listeners. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and remember, the real magic happens when you're unplugged.